Hey, thank you for tuning into our podcast from Holyoke. He has the historic tours of Greater Holyoke, where he offers both public and private tours on the local canal systems, reservoirs, cemeteries, as well as various parks and streets in Holyoke, Chicopee, and South Hadley, Mass. You can check out his website for more information at holyokecanaltours.org. There he has videos and photos of his past and present tours, as well as his 2023 schedule. So today we're discussing the Olmsted Parks in Holyoke, Mass. Now, the Olmsted brothers, uh, founded in the Springdale, founded in 1905, finished in 1905, Elmwood Park, 1909, the Joint Point Park, 1912, and Pulaski Park in 1913. What are some of the comparisons and how do they contrast?
Yes, these parks. Well, one thing that's somewhat in common is that three of them are along the river. And they used to have great views of the river. The one at Springdale lost that view when they had to put in a dike system to control the floodwaters coming in. The one at Jones Point is also along the river, but it has the train tracks along it. The one at Pulaski Park was a great one. It's got invasive species of trees since then, but it's still in the late fall, during the winter, early spring, you can see the Mount Tom and Mount Holyoke ranges very well from them. Now, another thing they have in common is that they're all curving parked in the Olmsteds, whether the father or the two sons, never liked to have a park be rectangular and with paths through it that were straight lines. They always liked curved lines and parks that were bent around. And they also liked parks that had trees in given places. So you look at it, it'd have a very unique view at one angle, then another different type of view at another angle of the park. You got to remember that the father designed Central Park in New York City. And now these two sons did these four parks. And one thing I would say that they had in common is that they have a beautiful arrangement of paths and trees through all of them. And that arrangement still holds true as you walk through any one of these given parks. You can still see the beautiful curve of the paths you walk along and the trees that are there. A big contrast between everyone, they're all unique, of course, is mostly because they had to fit it into the space that was given. And so there's a great difference in size, and there's a great difference in the reason why they exist. So the ones at Jones Point was supposed to be a city-owned trolley park, but it never really happened that way because people still kept going to Mountain Park, which was only a mile away. Springdale Park was going to be a big stop and where people can go off and enjoy themselves with a wading pool and with athletic section, and that happened for a very long time. Elmwood Park has almost totally disappeared. It's where the Holyoke High School, Peck Junior High School, Rozier Field, Mackenzie Field, the Poliot swimming pool, and Shard Park are. Most of it is gone from what it used to be. But if you want to see some of what it still looks like, go to either Shard Park or Crozier Field, and you'll see what the old Elmwood Field looked like. And that was supposed to be a rustic park, but it turned into Holyoke's playground, where you go play baseball, where you go swimming. So that's a drastic change. Next.
Now, which are your favorite parks and why?
Probably Pulaski Park because of the beautiful scenery that it has during at least 6 months out of the year. I wish they cut down those invasive trees uh, down to the along the bank down to the train tracks. But it's still a gorgeous park. It's beautiful paths wind around, and if you feel like it's in a nice place, and you feel like you're secluded enough, but still you're only a few steps away from downtown where there's a lot of beautiful things going on. So Pulaski's the best. Also, I like Springdale a lot. It's big, and so you can walk along its perimeter, and it'll take up about a 20-minute walk. Elmwood, of course, has disappeared, and Jones Point Park is only half there anymore. Half of it has turned into woods, and so I don't go there very much.
Now, tell us about the futures of each of these four parks in turn.
Well, Elmwood Park, has disappeared, and it probably will keep disappearing. So that's gone. I think Springdale Park will stay that way because it's at the edge of the river and it has the dike system right there, and so it will never develop other than a park. And so I think it'll have the same look. I wish they get some of the rose bushes back and redo some of the trees. Jones Point Park, I wish they cut out the western part where a lot of trees have come up in the last 110 years. It used to be all open, but if you go there, half of it is returned to looking like a woods. And so that's a drastic change, and I wish they'd get rid of that. Now, of course, at Pulaski Park, not within the park. The park is great, but just over that wall, down that bank, I wish they'd get rid of those trees that are nothing but invasive species. They should not be there. That park was intended to have a great view of the Mount Tom and Mount Holyoke ranges, and it only has that view for 6 months out of the year, and the other 6 months, the view is blocked.
Now, is there any common theme running through the four parks?
I would say if there's a common theme, it's for relaxation of the people that go there. Remember that Holyoke is a mill town. People would work long hours, and after in the late afternoon, they'd want to have a place to go relax. And also on Saturday and Sunday, they would also want to have that. And so these parks were made for the people, and they still have that quality to them. And so I hope that they stays that way. One thing I wish would happen is that some of these parks would get joined together by a walkway. So you would have either a pedestrian path or a bike riding path or a greenway between every one of these very important parks in Holyoke. That would be great. The Olmsted wanted to do that when they first came to Holyoke in about 1905. They told the head of the Parks and Rec, we want to make this into a greenway, very similar to the Emerald Necklace of Boston. Well, that never happened, but it's still a beautiful place, and I hope you enjoy going to these parks.
And thank you for that. And thank you for listening to our podcast. And check out some of our other ones we have. Again, his website is holyokecanaltours.org, and you can email him directly as well at bobcat4214, capital B, at yahoo.com. And hopefully you check out those. Thank you. Thank you for tuning into our podcast. We are coming to you from South Hadley, Massachusetts. I am your host, Carrie, and joining me is Holyoke's very own local historian and creator of the Historical Tours of Greater Holyoke, Robert Camus. And he offers both public and private tours, as well as presentations of the local canal systems, reservoirs, cemeteries, and churches, as well as various parks and streets in Holyoke, South Hadley, and Chicopee, Massachusetts. Now, you actually lead these tours and give these presentations yourself, is that correct?
Yes, and I've led many Olmsted project tours.
Yes, that's right. So now you're today going to be just telling us about some of the other projects in Holyoke. So we have discussed Olmsted parks and neighborhoods in Holyoke in some of our other previous podcasts. So the Olmsteds also started various other projects throughout. And so tell us about their City Beautiful project in Holyoke.
Yes, and this was actually two projects. There was a City Beautiful project ordered by the mayor of Holyoke at that point, Nathan Avery, and then there was a citywide project also led by the Olmsted to make the perimeters of Holyoke into beauty zones. And both were written up projects, and they were written into the forms that are given to the mayor, but also written into the annual city registers, which were a place where all the departments of Holyoke would put in their notes for the year and give it to the mayor. So this report is still around, and this was a moving around the United States anyways. So Holyoke's City Beautiful project is nothing special, but what they were asked to do is give us a sense of how to make Holyoke even better. And they came up with things like expand Westfield Street out to Westfield, to make it a beautiful boulevard, to make Northampton Street into a beautiful boulevard. Continue the trolley line all the length of Northampton Street. Sure, it went on it in a couple points, 3 points, but none of them went the entire length of Northampton. They also said make the Holyoke Canal system beautiful. And they also said make beautiful parks around the perimeter, which was done. So you have things like Springdale Park and Jones Point Park and many, many others. They also told them make a beautiful park system around the interior, which partially was done, not fully. So they were trying to get a sense of how to make Holyoke even better than it was, and the goals were not totally fulfilled, but to some degree they were. And many of the parks that you see around Holyoke, especially the ones that don't have a grid or square or rectangular shape to them, are probably Olmsted parks, and they were made to look very beautiful. So the City Beautiful project worked at times, and other times they didn't have the money to keep developing these places.
So now also there's the William Whiting project. Can you let us know about that?
It's not known how much of the project was done, but the William Whiting land is where the Kmart Plaza complex is now. It's an enormously long plaza going from Kmart in the year 2020 to 2023, this year. It ends at Ocean State Job Lot. That's an enormous plot of land, maybe a half-mile long. And that and the hill behind it, and the road in front of it, and anything to the east with land going down, where there was also a plaza at one point, that was all William Whiting's land. He was a very rich paper maker around Holyoke. He was a gentleman farmer, had a farm that grew large vegetables, prized vegetables, and also prized cattle. And he wanted his land to be developed, and he asked the Olmsted brothers, can you make a plan for me to make it even better? Now, I know a lot about the other projects in Holyoke, and there's 22 of them by the Olmsted brothers. This one I've not ever been able to find a project plan or design, and I can't find a statement that they was even done. But even if it was done, it was destroyed, because these plazas on both sides of Northampton Street destroyed everything that might have been done. And my thought is there might have been some things done to make it beautiful in some of the Olmsted designs. Some of the driveways are curved, a sign of the Olmsteds, but everything is totally destroyed.
So now, quickly before we continue the rest of our interview, just to fill our listeners in, if you want to find out more information or sign up for any of his various tours, you can check out his website at holyokecanaltour.org. And there he has both videos of the various stops along each tour, also past and present photos of the historical sites throughout as well. And if you are interested in setting up a private tour, you can email him directly at bobcat4214, B, @yahoo.com. And they are perfect for fun educational outdoor activities for the whole family or for your group parties, especially those special occasions and get-togethers. And they're also good just for getting outdoors for the day. So getting back to our interview, now tell us about the Contagious Disease Hospital Project.
Yes, this was a true hospital in Holyoke. It was very close to where the Holyoke Soldiers' Home is nowadays. In fact, it is where the up-ramp south onto Interstate 91 is. So thus, it's gone. Now, in 1920s, the city asked the Olmsted brothers, can you make a design for the outside of the Contagious Disease Hospital? The whooping cough hospital, the measles hospital, and diphtheria hospital were all there, joined together by administration building. But they wanted the land around it to be such that people could go out for walks. And it was thought at that point that a little relaxation, a little fresh air would help people develop and to get better very quickly. And so the work was done. I know it was done because in the city reports for that year, I think 1924, it says all work is now completed on the landscape of the Contagious Disease Hospital. They didn't, and by design plans, I know what was done. it was made into a little nature preserve with little walkways around each of the buildings. The patients from one building couldn't go near the patients from others, so there's pathways around each of the three buildings. The sad part is I don't have any pictures of it, and I've went up there, everything is totally destroyed by the interstate.
So, also describe to us the St. Jerome Cemetery project.
Yes, in about 1939, the Olmsted brothers were called upon to make the Stations of the Cross around the modern part of the St. Jerome Cemetery. They wanted 14 stations, just like the Catholics use inside their church, to describe each point along the route of Jesus going to his crucifixion point. And then in the middle front, there was going to be a cross of Jesus with Mary in front. Now, each of these were to be about 12 feet high, were to be made out of copper, and were to be an outdoors station of the cross surrounded by bushes. Each of the designs were made on pen and paper. Now, it's well known they were never actually made. 1939, you asked the people to do it. In 1940, the United States was called upon by Great Britain to start making a lot of ships for them to be able to fight against the Nazis in World War II. Copper was too valuable to make in the hull of ships, and so this project never got off the ground, and by the end of the war, say in 1946, it was gone out of people's mind. It's too bad because when you look at these projects, has the designs that were drawn up on pen and paper, they would have been glorious.
Now, they also created the Prentice Home. Can you educate us about that?
Yes, George Prentice and his son William Prentice were wire makers around Holyoke. They owned the Prentice Mill number 1 and 2. And they got quite rich. The father had his house in the Highland section of Holyoke on what is now on Northampton Street, but at the corner of what is now Carroll Drive. What happened was they made the project. The Olmsted made a glorious landscape, and some pictures do exist. But in the late 1950s, a developer wanted to put in a side street off of Northampton Street, and he put it right where the Prentice home was. Instead of moving the home, they took down the home. They left the carriage barn in place, though. So what you see out there now, the landscape is mostly gone, but around the carriage barn, which is mainly someone's home, right off of Carroll Drive, there's still the original landscape around there. So you can see part of that landscape. This is sad because out of 22 projects in Holyoke, this might have been considered top 5 material. And it's very sad because the Prentice family gave so much to Holyoke, gave so many jobs to Holyoke, and made a beautiful house there, a beautiful Victorian house with a gorgeous landscape around it. So the best you can do is look at a few pictures we have and look especially at the great landscape design that was made for them. And that's the best we can do. Thank you.
So, thank you, Robert, for educating us on your tours, and we want to thank our listeners for tuning in. And you can also tune into a large selection of our other podcasts and much more at his website. Again, that's holyokecanaltour.org. And again, you can email him directly for private tours or to inquire about anything else at bobcat4214, capital B, at yahoo.com. And be sure to keep an eye out for his upcoming 2024 season tours and more as they become available. Thank you for tuning in.